What's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to integrate a PIR sensor into your Raspberry Pi projects. So PIR stands for passive infrared. Now in our application today, I'm going to cover how to turn on an LED momentarily after a motion event occurs. In regards to parts, you can already see that I have the LEDs hooked up to the Raspberry Pi. I actually covered this in a prior video, so I'll just attach a link in the description if you need to get up to speed. Aside from that, you're going to need 3 female to female jumper cables and a PIR sensor, obviously. So if we flip the sensor over and take a closer look, we can see that we're presented with 3 pins. So the rightmost pin over here is our VCC pin, and it will be hooked up to our 5-volt pin on the Pi. The middle pin will act as our signaling pin, and finally the leftmost pin will just be hooked up to our ground pin on the Pi. Now if we turn it to the sensor on the side, we can see we're presented with 2 pots. So these 2 pots allow us to adjust the sensitivity of the sensor. So the rightmost pot adjusts the delay time, and the leftmost pot adjusts the distance that the sensor will pick up motion. So turning the sensor to the side once again, we're presented with 3 additional pins, and this sort of configures the sensor for 2 different modes. So it's currently set up in a non-repeatable trigger mode, and if we bridge the left and middle pin, that sets it up in a repeatable trigger mode. For our application, just leave it as is. So with all that said, let's go ahead and hook this up to the Pi. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my red jumper cable here, which will be hooked up to power, and attach that. So this red jumper will be hooked up to the 5-volt pin on the Pi. So that is just the first pin on the top row of GPIO pins, and then now that that's done, let's go ahead and hook up our orange jumper cable here. This will be hooked up to the signal pin on the sensor, and now we're going to attach it to the Pi. I've just selected a GPIO 26, so that's the one I'm going to hook the sensor up to. And then finally we can hook up this brown wire, which will be our ground, to any available ground on the Pi. So I'm just going to hook this wire up to an available ground pin. So yeah, installation is fairly simple. That's pretty much it. Now that the PIR sensor is hooked up and we have our LEDs hooked up as well, we can head over to the computer and open a text editor and start editing our Python script. So I recently started using PyCharm instead of Sublime. It's a Python IDE, and in my experience it works a lot better. So I highly recommend using it if you want to get more serious into Python development. But anyways, here I have the script for the PIR sensor, and we'll just walk through it real quick. So I import the necessary libraries and then set the GPI mode on line 4. Then we have our 3 components. So we have 2 output LEDs and then our signal pin. So these are all the pins that need to be set up, and then we go ahead and do that. So we set the 2 LEDs to output because they're gonna output and turn the light on, and then the signal
pin will be an input. So when it detects movement, it sends the message to the Pi sends the command out to the LEDs to turn on or turns them high, and then that turns them, and then the user is notified. So now that we have that setup all done, we can look at this function I created. It's just a function to toggle the lights on and off. So here we can see it's gonna print a message to the user on the console that motion has been detected, and it will go ahead and turn the lights on for 2 seconds and turn them off. So this is essentially our sort of main loop here. Right when we start the script, it'll notify the user if he's SSH'd in, or that the script is running. It's going to wait 0.2 seconds, then go to the ready mode. I have this try catch block just in case the user exits. It'll exit more gracefully. And right here is sort of the logic behind detecting movement in a loop. So this registers the change in the GPIO value, and then we have a while loop that's just constantly running. So we have this sleep here for a second, and it'll check the value, wait a second, and then check the value. So you can change this sleep to anything you want. Mainly it's for performance, because if you have an infinite loop running, it will be sort of taxing for the CPU. So if you just check it, for example, every 10 seconds instead of every second, that'll reduce the load on the Pi. But honestly, I don't think you should run into issues. But yeah, that's basically how the script works. So let's go ahead and fire it off and see it in action. Okay, so I've SSH'd into my Pi, and I'm going to go ahead and run the script we just created. So Python PIR.py. So hit enter, and you can see it's ready and actively polling to see if there's any movement. I'm going to go ahead and physically trip the IR beam. So there we have it. Script works. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you like the channel, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more upcoming vids, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.